It is 91.7 WCUR in Westchester, and you're listening to the Rock and Roll Pizza Show. My name is Vinny. Our guest today on the phone with us is the lead singer of an up-and-coming band out of Philadelphia by the name of Cassettes. We're speaking with Matt Distefano. Such a pleasure to have you, Matt.
Hey, Vinny. How's it going?
Very good, and I saw you live at the Boonton Saddle last Saturday, and I got to tell you that show was very phenomenal.
Yeah, man, it was a lot of fun for us. We had a great time. The show ended up selling out, which was awesome. So yeah, it was really cool to kind of celebrate the release of the new record with a bunch of friends and family, and yeah, it was a great night.
Yeah, and just released an album called Wild Heart. I mean, and one of my favorite tracks on this album that I just played is called Born in the 90s. I mean, as a man who was born in the 90s myself, to me, it sounds like a mixture of a little bit of love song, a little bit of, a little bit of nostalgia in the mix, and I see a lot of references to Rick Springfield. So,
Yeah.
I'm curious what the song means to you.
So the song, actually, the chorus kind of came out of thin air at some point. I'm someone who was born in the 80s, but it was this idea that it was kind of funny to me thinking about it, like, okay, people who were born in the 90s are like 28, 29 now, and I was like, it's very, thinking in my head of someone who was born in the 90s, it seems like such a young person, someone who's like, I don't know, much younger than I am.
Please drive inside.
But they aren't. And so, like, the idea that, it would be very conceivable for, any of us in the band to date someone who was born in the 90s was kind of a funny concept. And then sort of the Rick Springfield thing came later. It's kind of a funny story. So there was that line specifically, there was this girl that I kind of had a crush on who was born in the 90s. And she was a friend of a friend, so I kind of like see her around, chat with her every now and then. And she was dating a guy at the time. And so someone had joked that it was kind of like the song Jesse's Girl because, having a crush on someone who's with someone. And literally at a party, someone must have put on like an 80s mix of music, and Jesse's Girl came on, and that was literally when she walked in and walked up and said hello. And it was very, very weird kind of like musical moment in life, which I don't think happens all that much. But yeah, so it's kind of a little bit behind the song.
Wow, that's a pretty nice thought. It's great how songs end up inspiring another song. Like when I saw the music video of that song, like it shows the whole lyrics will going from one vinyl record to the next. I'm curious, where'd you get those vinyl records used in? Are they yours or are they borrowed?
Those are all ours. Those were all either mine or Joe, our bass players. Yeah, we're the two of us, and then Sean in our band are all pretty big record nerds. We all have pretty big record collections. So yeah, we pulled them all from that and made that video, which was it turned out awesome, but which was a huge headache to make.
I can only imagine that. I'm actually collecting a little bit of records myself. Like this past year, I've been trying to hit the rock shop whenever I can at the King of Prussia Mall, which sells a lot of vinyl records, both newer and used stuff. Like
Very cool.
I'm trying to find as much as I possibly can. I see that you would release the album on vinyl as well. Obviously, vinyl these past few years is making a comeback in terms of sales and interest. What do you think that is, with especially with all the popularity of digital downloads and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the weird person to ask because I've always been the person who preferred some physical version of an album, whether it's like a CD or vinyl. I like having, the access to be able to listen to stuff digitally just because it's easy, but I've always wanted to have, a physical version of an album. I don't know what it is. I think it's a cool thing for people to collect with all of the different limited releases that people do. And with our album, for example, we did 3 different versions. So there's 3 different colors. They all look really cool. So it's just something that's cool to hold, cool to touch. You still get a digital version of it. Yeah, I think it's just a cool collectible thing for people who really love music and want to be able to support bands in that way.
Wow, That's actually pretty good. I'm curious as to where the name Cassettes came from, because it's just such a cool name, and it's got a pretty good nostalgic feel to it, as I kind of mentioned.
Yeah, so we had a couple different names prior to that name, and we never really agreed on anything. So we had a long list of names. This is one that we all could kind of agree on. I don't know that it necessarily came from anywhere specific, but in hindsight, I think it fits really well because our band we're a modern, guitar-based rock band, super poppy kind of rock band. But the stuff that I think we all really love, the albums that we really love, are stuff from the 80s and the 90s, 2000s as well. But a lot of our favorite albums were released on cassette, and that's a cool format as well. We released our first EP on cassette.
Yeah.
So it kind of came a little bit from that, but it also came from just having a long list of names and us not being able to agree on anything.
Yeah, when I listen to the songs on the album, I also hear the very same styles that you mentioned, like pop rock, punk rock, power pop influences, very upbeat. I'm curious what your biggest musical influences were when making this album. I saw a review that compared your style to Bryan Adams and Rick Springfield. Yeah. Oh, when I think about it, I do kind of see why people think that, but for me, I personally see a little bit of Green Day, a little bit of Blink-182 as well.
Sure, yeah. It's interesting because everyone who has heard the album has different comparisons, and I think it ends up being a little bit related to the style of music that maybe people grew up listening to. Because we love all those bands. We love, Blink and Rick Springfield and, some other bands that people have said it sounds like, like the Hold Steady, Gaslight Anthem, a little bit of like Springsteen, Weezer, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think all of those bands are things that we've always listened to. And as a band, some of the bands that we love are, things like Weezer, The Cars, Journey, Jimmy World, a lot of the like 70s and 80s pop rock stuff that was really guitar heavy. So I think all that kind of bled together and formed sort of the sound on the album.
Nice. I guess Cheap Trick also falls into a little bit of the mix as well.
Oh, totally. Love Cheap Trick.
Yeah, Cheap Trick's one of those best bands. I'm glad they're finally in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after a couple of years. I'm curious, what are your non-musical influences? It could be anything, whether it could be cats, could be pets, could be love, could be anything.
Non-musical influences on the band. That's a very good question, and I don't know that I have an answer for it. I think this band in particular, one thing that really comes through in the music is that we're all friends, and we all have a lot of fun doing this. And all the guys in this band, we all met in different bands, very drastically different sounding bands. And I think the thing that really kind of like brought us together, we were all friends first, and started playing together after the fact, and I think that really shows on just kind of like how fun the record is. We had a lot of fun making it, we had a lot of fun writing it, and I think that's a big influence on the band, is us just enjoying being around each other.
Nice. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Boonton Saddle, in particular the two other bands that played before you with Savage Dads, which the guitarist Mr. Krause was actually one of my old high school teachers, and
I know.
Jimmy Stat of the Polar Bears Club. I was curious where'd you pick those guys at?
Savage Dads we've played with around Philly a handful of times. They're a great band, so we obviously wanted to have them come out. Jimmy Stat has been a friend of mine for, I don't know, it's probably been over 10 years at this point, 12 years I've known him. He used to play in a band called Polar Bear Club that an old band of mine played with pretty frequently, and I always loved his songwriting and his voice and his band. He's in a new band. He's in two new bands now called Wax Bottles, and one's called Shy Tooth, and I love those bands as well. So he was somebody that was kind of a no-brainer for us to ask to come out and play. And, they were both awesome at the show.
Yeah, they were pretty awesome. And I also loved how Jimmy Stat covered REM's Superman. So which brings me to this question. If you could cover any song at all, well, what do you think one would be?
So Well, number one, I'm bummed that I missed that because I had to run downstairs and we were kind of gathering all of our stuff together, so I missed the second half of their set. So I'm super bummed I missed that. But as far as covers, we've done a few before. I have a long list of covers that I want to do. One that we've already done that I really loved is my favorite movie is That Thing You Do, and there's a song in that movie called Little Wild One that the band The Wonders in that movie does, and we used to cover that a bit, which was super fun. It's a really fun song that I love. So yeah, that was a cool one.
Yeah, and speaking of Weezer and cover songs, like just last Thursday, just Out of the Teal or Out of the Blue or whatever, they're all kind of different shades of blue. I was curious if you heard the album before the show.
Yeah, I heard it. It's funny, our band is very torn on it. I think half of us think it's super fun, and then half of us are kind of like wish that it was just Weezer stopped after Pinkerton. I'm in the former camp. I love Weezer. I think the Teal album is super fun. I've been, they're probably my favorite band and have been following them forever. Even like saw them twice last year and just love, so they're a band that has had their ups and downs, but each of their records has, great songs on it. But the Teal album is super fun. It's kind of like just a fun thing to drop before their new album comes out.
The Black Album. There's so many color albums. There's the Blue Album from 1994, 2001's the Green Album, 2008's the Red Album, 2016 or 2015, I forget which one it was, the White Album, and just coming up the Black Album. They're running out of colors. Pretty soon they're going to have like the Orange Album, the Purple Album, the Yellow Album.
They're going to come. It's coming. It's on the way.
I've got a good feeling about this. I think Weezer does have a lot of things. Like, have you seen that Saturday Night Live sketch about them?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So being that I'm a huge Weezer fan, a lot of my friends know that I'm a huge Weezer fan. So when that was on, I was texted that by tens of people. And I thought it was hilarious. It's such a super specific sketch. And I really saw myself in both characters because I'm somebody who absolutely loves their early music, but is super defensive of their recent music, like the White Album. She just mentioned. I think the White Album is great. Everything Will Be All Right in the End. Another great sort of modern Weezer album.
Yeah, it was also produced by both Everything Will Be All Right in the End, the Green Album, and the Blue Album were produced by Cars singer Rick Ocasek.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't produce a lot, but the stuff that he produces turns out very cool. I think from what I read, he has this really kind of like weird approach to it, but everything that comes out of it is awesome.
Nice, and Weezer even covered the Cars song "You Might Think" back in 2011. I think it was for the Cars 2 soundtrack, the second Cars film. And I love that. Great. I love that version. I mean, I don't really see any difference between the Weezer version and the Cars version. I mean, the melody is actually very similar. I mean, Weezer does have that unique style, in my opinion, of having a newer one and having an older one, just all sounding very, very similar.
Yeah, that's definitely a cool cover. I love that song. You Might Think is one of my favorite Cars songs.
Yep. You might think I'm crazy. You don't want me here singing the rest of this. Okay, moving on. On 93.3 WMMR in Philadelphia this month in January, you were picked to be afternoon host Jaxon's Local Shot Artist, in which he and his producer and MMR's new music director, Sara Parker, pick one artist per month and play a song around 6:30 p.m., give or take. I'm curious how'd you find out you were a local shot and how'd you react?
First off, we've been super happy that WMMR has been supportive of the band, which is super cool. A few years back when we released our first EP, it may have been a little bit before that, I actually knew Sarah's husband he knew my old band, and I was a big fan of this t-shirt company that he had at the time. And so we kind of met through a mutual friend through that. And so he heard our new band. We actually had a song on our first EP called Sara.
With an H or no H?
No H. Thank
God.
So that it made its way to Sara, and so they ended up on their podcast form of the local shots, ended up playing that song when we had the EP out. So when we released the new album, I reached out to Sara and just sent her the album, and thanked her for being supportive in the past. And then, she got back to us and was like, hey, we'd love to have you guys be the local music artist for MMR for the month of January. And we were, super appreciative. It's been very cool, just have them have our back and be able to help out with promoting the album and promoting the show that we just played last weekend. It's been super cool. Yeah, so everyone over there has been awesome.
Yeah, and just yesterday, Sara had a 30th birthday. And of course, we here on WCUR wish her a very happy belated birthday. So I was wondering, maybe, I know this is probably going to be ever so slightly bit of a hassle, especially over the phone. Maybe both of us could wish her a happy birthday over on the air.
Yeah,
right.
So can totally do that.
Ready?
Happy birthday to Sara. Did you want to sing?
Of course.
Okay,
right.
you take the lead.
2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Sara Kuda. Happy birthday to you.
Love it.
I might play a couple songs a little later on after I get done with you. So, and thing is, your Boonton Saddle show happened to be the same night as her 30th birthday party with Jackie Bam Bam and Sara and her number with Riot Nerd and In the Presence of Wolves, which I just played a few moments ago.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so we were hoping that they could make it out, but I'd reached out. She's like, "Oh, it's my 30th birthday, so I have like a super fun thing planned." We're like, "Oh, that's awesome!" But hopefully they'll be out at the next one.
Nice. So we have a guideline on WCUR in which we are required to play 2 new songs from our college music journal from a certain artist or two, and we are also required to do 2 local bands and or songs. And like for those who may not know, what are the steps to becoming a local shot on WMMR? Because there's so many artists, like the stuff I've been playing, and like a couple of local bands, I think, have the potential to one day become local shots. So what would your advice be to them?
Just I don't know, be really confident in the music that you make. Make something that you're really proud of and that you think is great, and then share it with people. We were kind of like in a unique situation with how we got in touch with them, but they have I think there's a form on their website you can fill out and submit stuff. The cream always rises to the top. So if your band is awesome, which there's a lot of really great Philly bands, I'm sure they'll hear of you and be able to give you some support.
Yeah, I know a band out of Scranton called E57. You can follow them on their Twitter at E57 Music. I've been playing a couple of songs last semester from them, and my God, they were phenomenal. I mean, I even said on my Twitter page, it's like this band, it needs to be their local shot artist one of these months. And just recently, they came out with another album. So, I think with a little more pushing, a little more pedaling, maybe that dream could become a reality.
Yeah, totally.
And one last thing before I let you go, where can people find the new album, and where can people follow you, like social media, stuff like that?
Yeah. So the band is called Cassettes. The new album is called Wild Heart. It is available everywhere that you would stream music, download music: iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, all that sort of stuff. You can get the vinyl version on our website, CassettesForever.com, and check there for some upcoming shows as well. We'll be announcing some stuff soon and playing a lot more throughout the spring. Social media, we are on Instagram at Cassettes Forever, Facebook, Cassettes Forever, and Twitter at Cassettes PA. Come check us out on any of those places, and listen to the new record. We're super proud of it. We're super excited. Give it a stream. Give it a listen.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Matt. I really enjoy you as a guest, and I hope to see you real soon.
Thank you, Vinny, and thank you for coming out to the show on Saturday. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.